Now, should Britain keep backing Ukraine? Give us your thoughts on this. 0207 862 2222. Yesterday, the Prime Minister pledged to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position as he signed a landmark 100-year pact. Now, during his visit to Kyiv, Sir Keir Starmer promised Ukraine further military support, economic aid, support for healthcare and increased collaboration on maritime security and drone technology. Now, Zelensky thanked Starmer for his comments, which comes against the backdrop of concerns that the soon-to-be US President Donald Trump could reduce aid. But is it wise for Starmer to keep backing Ukraine so strongly, or are we becoming too involved in a foreign conflict? Don, where do you stand on this?
Well, every military expert I've interviewed over this thinks we have to be involved. We don't have a choice. I mean, it is like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour flight away from us. And you know, as I said, I'm not a military expert, quite clearly. I have got no idea.
I thought you were like a little general on the side.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can see you in a little general hat.
I want you saluting more often, young man. But no, every military expert says we should be. So I'm just going with the people that know what they're talking about. And if we have to be involved, we have to be involved.
100-year pact?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I listened to that yesterday. It's what is a 100-year pact, right? I mean, you know, who is going to be around in 100 years to find out whether this pact, whatever it actually even means, it's meaningless.
I mean, 100 years ago, we were allied with Russia. I mean, we were allied with Russia in World War I, and we were allied with Russia with World War II. So I don't quite understand why you come. Who knows what will happen? In terms of Ukraine, look, Russia launched an unjustifiable, brutal, illegal invasion against Ukraine. And in those circumstances, it's absolutely right to defend and support the self-defence of a country against an illegal and brutal invasion. My concern at this point, if I'm going to just be really honest, is Russia is winning, quite clearly. Donald Trump has made clear that the level of support the US has provided is now going to diminish. Clearly, Britain, not to get some more angry callers, is not, I'm afraid, a power which is going to fill the vacuum left by the United States of America. And my genuine worry, and I'm just going to be brutally honest about it, is hundreds of thousands of young men, both the Russian men thrown in the meat grinder by Vladimir Putin and those young Ukrainian men, hundreds of thousands have been slaughtered. And my fear is this is going to end in an agreement which is in favour of Russia, I'm afraid. And the question is, do we end up there with like 50,000 extra young men killed, 100,000 extra young men killed? And that is something...
So what do you want to see happen then?
Well, this is the thing. It's very difficult to answer that, isn't it? Because as things stand, I support providing Ukraine with weapons in order to prevent, to stop Russia from advancing into it. Russia is right now advancing throughout Ukraine. We've provided a huge amount of weapons. The problem is, just to be brutally frank, Russia is a much bigger country with a much bigger population than Ukraine. It's a very autocratic, dictatorial regime, and they're prepared to have staying power.
But for that reason alone, don't we have to band together with the rest of Europe then to show force against Russia and in favour of Ukraine?
Well, I guess my issue, but the reality is Donald Trump is going to start pulling the plug, and he's the president of the United States, and Europe does not have the capability to fill the vacuum. So we're talking about now Ukraine losing already with the level of support it has. That level of support is going to go down. That's my worry. I want Ukraine to have all its territory back and not live under Russian occupation. But I'm just asking, is that actually realistically now going to happen?
We don't know what Donald Trump's going to do yet. I mean, it's all speculation. Obviously, Zelensky has implied that there is a deal to be done. And to be honest, for the rest of Europe, we should have done something in 2014 when Russia took over the Crimea.
OK. Well, should we keep backing Ukraine is what we're asking. 0207 862 2222. It's amazing what this show does. We go from lookalikes to backing Ukraine in one fell swoop. David from Wolverhampton, you're up first on the phones. Do you think this is a good idea?
No, I think we should definitely stop backing Ukraine financially, 100%.
Will that not put us at risk if Putin thinks Ukraine's weakened, both from Trump coming into power and also Europe not giving it the same sort of bolstering powers, the same sort of help?
No, I don't think it will, because before the war, we were fine. And why can't we be after it? I think they just need to sit down and get this resolved in a peaceful manner. Because at the end of the day, with all the money that we've put in to support Ukraine, and it may be slightly coming off topic, but they cancelled the winter fuel payments for people, but they've managed to find money to support Ukraine.
Well, on that, I don't think
important.
I don't think it's either or. The point you make is a really important one, which is they can find money when they have to. And that is a really good point. Of course, they shouldn't have kicked pensioners like that. We've got awful winter at the moment. It's freezing cold. And the idea of, older Britons freezing in their homes is hideous. But we've got a huge amount of money. It's just in the pockets of a very small number of people who aren't taxed properly, in my opinion. But as for Ukraine, I think the question is, look, if you were Ukrainian, would you just accept the fact that a foreign power has just marched in and taken a load of your territory? Would you accept that if you were British? Probably not. I don't realistically think Russia is ever going to invade Britain, by the way.
You don't think we will become a target? You don't think Putin will even see this as an escalation of...
I think, look, realistically, Russia's bit off more than it can chew in Ukraine. Because of the resistance of the Ukrainian people, they've lost tens of thousands of soldiers.
Yes.
They've managed to absorb that because they're a nasty autocratic regime which suppresses what's actually happening. In a democracy, that would have been really destabilising. But the idea that just, the people talk about the Baltic states like Latvia, Lithuania, who are, understandably, because they've had a history of being taken over under, the Stalin's era. Do I really think they're going to march in there? Well, no, because you just then have to constantly deal with a war, resistance fighters fighting against you. I think realistically, they're going to try and dismember Ukraine, take as what they've got now. That doesn't mean it's not a danger, but I don't think Britain's going to get invaded. It's more of a question of principle.
All right, David, thank you very much for your call. Patricia from Devon, what's your views? Do we need to keep supporting Ukraine until the war is over?
Certainly not. We cannot afford it. We have our own people to look after, and we should keep our nose out of it.
OK, I mean, whether we can or we can't keep our nose out of it, I suppose, is up for debate as well, how much this is actually at our door. But when we're looking at the numbers, I think we've given them 12.8 billion in aid and help, and that's both military and other types of aid. We said we were going to spend 8 billion on potholes. So when you're putting it into perspective of what's more important, all the potholes being filled in this country or being protected from a country like Russia, it sort of makes that 12 billion pale into comparison, does it not?
Russia will not invade our little island.
What makes you say that, Patricia?
It will not happen.
It may not invade, but do you think it could attack?
No, it will not happen.
What would they attack us for? I mean, I'm not quite sure what would they get out of that? The point about Ukraine is they're trying to carve out areas which, Crimea was historically in Russia. That there's no justification for taking it. And others had Russian there were Russian-speaking peoples there. That's not a justification for invading it. And a lot of those Russian speakers do not want to live under Russian control. But you kind of think, what would be the military strategic aim? What would they get out of it? They'd have to spend vast sums of money taking a land full of a people who don't want to be ruled by them. That doesn't pan out well for our powers.
OK, Patricia, thank you very much for your call. Darren from the North East, what's your view on this?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Darren, when it comes to Ukraine, do we need to keep supporting them?
What it is I've got family fighting over the Ukraine at the moment. He's been there 2 years fighting, and he's won 5 medals up now.
OK, Darren, let's keep any details as vague as possible because, first of all, it's illegal. But second of all, we don't want to be identifying anyone in any way. But do you think, with that in mind, do you feel that Britain should be supporting Ukraine in the way that we are?
I'm in two minds. I want boots on the ground. British boots on the ground, but it's not our war, so I'm in two minds.
We can't have boots on the ground because then we would literally be at war with Russia, and we're both nuclear-armed powers. Look, Ukraine, again, I support the arming of Ukraine against the unjustifiable invasion. I don't want a nuclear apocalypse, which would wipe out all of Ukraine, but also wipe all of us out as well.
Don, where do you stand on boots on the ground?
No, I think it's completely wrong, and it's illegal. We shouldn't do it because
It wouldn't be illegal.
Well,
I don't know what's illegal.
As things stand at the moment, yes, we don't have a mandate to go in and put boots on the ground in Russia, so therefore it's illegal. My issue with this is if we sit back and do nothing now, I think we're in a corner with this, and I think it's a stalemate. I don't think either side are winning at the moment, by the way.
Oh no, Russia is winning.
Well, I mean, it's as you say, thousands of people are dying. So the problem I've got with this is what message does it send out to the rest of the world? We know China are very much in bed with Russia, and they're watching what happens here very, very carefully.
Taiwan.
With what they can do with Taiwan. So I think it has a broader global impact as to how we, this little rock in the North Atlantic, behave on this issue.
But you say that, but the problem we've got is we lost our moral authority over the Iraq war because we marched into Iraq illegally on a false pretext. In Afghanistan, we were there for 2 decades. I'm afraid committed a lot of war crimes, which angered a lot of the local population, understandably, and the Taliban marched back in. And at the moment, we've been arming Israel to the teeth as it commits genocide against the Palestinian people. The problem is the West doesn't see itself often as the world sees it. We look at Russia and we can see very clearly, look at what they're doing, how awful it is. Within Russia, they don't think that. They're like, no, we are doing a justifiable war. But the problem is, we've got to be clear, the West commits. It does illegal invasions, it backs terrible dictatorships, and it's currently backing a genocide. We don't have any moral authority. We just don't.
Darren, thank you very much for your call. Diana from East Sussex. When it comes to backing Ukraine, do we need to do it for another 100 years?
Good morning, Storm and the team. And yes, I have to agree that it's a very, very controversial subject. But we are all basically a part of Europe. And we have another reenactment of a Hitler character, and I do not think they would stop at just conquering Ukraine if they were to succeed. And we have to go back to the First World War, the Second World War.
Okay, but
we had a Hitler and he was defeated.
Diana, Diana, both my panel shook their head when you mentioned Hitler. Don, why would you shake your head at that?
I think the comparison isn't quite as simple as it could be. I mean, you know, the Baltic states are understandably worried because they were part of the Soviet Union, so I understand why people there would be particularly worried. I don't think it's going to happen. I think I agree with Owen on this one. I think, well, who knows? But I think what Russia wants to do is take bits of the Ukraine and then step back. I don't think they can afford it financially or population-wise.
But people need to be careful of the Nazi analogies because things can be bad on their own terms, and Putin is a mass-murdering dictator. But Adolf Hitler was a genocidal maniac who wanted to dominate the entire world and sought to do so under a totalitarian regime that slaughtered tens of millions of people. It's just not the same. It really isn't.
I suppose, crucially, if we're going to make any kind of comparison, when we're talking about world wars, we won those wars with allies. And the issue that we have at the moment is America does not necessarily want to continue backing Ukraine, and therefore we will be kind of out on our own potentially. I mean, there'll be other European countries that may want to join us, but would that not put us in a huge amount of danger?
Well, I cannot really support what your team are saying because we just have bad leaders in the world, and we have to recognize that people like Putin, they're not recognizing the want of the people of the world. We don't want to be at war with any country.
Well, we
want
have
to have
though.
peace in this world.
We went to war in Iraq. We did. We've done the West does lots of these wars.
Diana, thank you very much. And some get more publicity than others. Thank you for your call. Terry from Hertfordshire, what's your view on this?
Well, I'm 86, and of course, the old Second World War resonates with me a little bit. But I'm going to be the boy for this, for the statistics. After the USSR broke up, the Ukraine was pretty much the nuclear dump of armaments, etc., from Russia. And as I remember it, we made a pact with Ukraine to get rid of all the nuclear stuff that it had, and that we would offer them the protection and security of our military, etc., etc., etc. So the fact of the matter is we've made this promise, and we're duty-bound to keep it, not least of all for all the other reasons that other people have come up with about the possibility of Russia carrying on, and eventually finishing up with us, which I would doubt. But if we've made promises, and Russia and Ukraine have given up all their nuclear capabilities, which they could have maintained at that time, surely we're committed.
Well, that's interesting, Terry. So essentially, we've made this promise already. We're just we're following up on it, and I suppose continuing it for another 100 years, it would seem. Terry, thank you very much for your call. Thanks for all your calls on that.